Have you ever looked at one of those stunning, crystal clear aquariums that seems to run on, well, almost nothing? No giant humming filters, no constant scrubbing. It really feels like a paradox, doesn't it? We're always told that keeping an aquarium is this constant battle against waste, this endless fight for a perfectly sterile tank. But what if? What if we've been fighting the wrong battle this whole time? Okay, so let's get right into it. The real secret to a thriving, stable aquarium has nothing to do with constantly taking things out. It's actually about intentionally growing something, cultivating it. It's about building a living, breathing engine right inside your tank that does all the heavy lifting for you. So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll tackle the illusion of what a clean tank really is. Then, we'll pull back the curtain on the invisible biological engine that powers a healthy system and see how it transforms waste instead of just trapping it. After that, we'll jump into the practical side, how you can design for it, why it takes time to mature, and finally, the incredible stability you get when it all comes together.
All right, part 1, the illusion of clean. We all do it, right? We buy filters, we do our water changes, we scrub the glass, all to get rid of that dirt. But it often feels like a losing battle, doesn't it? You end up with cloudy water, stressed out fish, and you start to wonder if you're doing something wrong. The truth is, the more we try to make our tanks sterile, the more unstable they can become.
And this leads to a really fundamental shift in how we think about this. What if the goal was never a sterile, lifeless box of water in the first place? What if instead we were trying to create a balanced, living ecosystem? A place where waste isn't a problem to be frantically removed, but a resource to be used.
And that brings us perfectly to our second section, the invisible biological engine. This is where we get to unveil the power of something called biofilm, and trust me, it is the absolute key to unlocking that natural stability that we're all after.
I know you've seen this, that brownish, kind of slimy film that eventually coats pretty much every surface in your tank, the glass, the rocks, the filter media, and your first instinct is to scrub it off, right? We see it as ugly, unwanted gunk, but is that really what's going on?
So here's the big reveal. What we've been dismissing as just some ugly slime is actually, from a scientific standpoint, a living biofilm. It is not, I repeat, not a sign of a dirty tank. It's the very beginning of a healthy one. This is that biological engine we've been talking about. This living layer actually has this amazing scientific name, Schmutzdecke. It's a German word, and it literally translates to dirt cover. And you should think of it like the rich, living layer of soil on a forest floor. It's not just dirt. It's this incredibly complex community of bacteria, algae, fungi, and protozoa, all working together to actively purify the water. So how in the world does this Schmutzdecke actually work? Well, it's based on a completely different philosophy than what most of us are used to. Which brings us to our third section, transforming, not trapping. Think about a typical filter cartridge for a second. It's basically a net, right? Its main job is mechanical filtration. It traps visible debris and gunk. But our biological filter, the Schmutzdecke, does something way more profound. It's like a microscopic chemical factory that takes invisible, dissolved toxins and fundamentally transforms them into something harmless, something the ecosystem can actually use.
This whole process is the famous nitrogen cycle, and it's just brilliant. So first, fish waste and leftover food produce highly toxic ammonia. Then, one group of bacteria living in that biofilm eats the ammonia and converts it into nitrite, still pretty harmful stuff. But then, a different group of bacteria comes along, eats the nitrite, and transforms it into much, much safer nitrate. And here's the magic trick. Nitrate is basically plant food. The cycle is complete. It's a perfect, self-sustaining loop. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but how do we actually make it happen? Well, that's section 4, designing for maximum life. We have to stop thinking about setting up a tank and start thinking about cultivating an ecosystem. We are essentially farming microbes. The single most important thing you need to provide is surface area. These microbes need a place to live, and the more real estate we can give them, the bigger and more powerful our biological engine becomes. A simple, porous sponge, for example, has vastly more surface area for these little guys to colonize than the smooth plastic of a typical filter cartridge. More homes equals more workers. It's that simple. And what do these microscopic workers actually need to thrive? It's surprisingly simple. First, they need a constant food supply, which is just the waste our fish are producing anyway. Second, they need enough oxygen, which we provide with just some gentle water flow. And third, they need a wet surface to grow on, which is our filter media, our rocks, our driftwood, you name it. That's it. No complicated tech, no magic potions.
Now here's the catch. This doesn't happen overnight. And that brings us to a really crucial step in Section 5, the ripening process. This is the part of the journey where patience becomes by far your most important tool. And, research shows this process is totally predictable and measurable. A brand new filter, right out of the box, might remove about 85% of certain bacteria. But as that Schmutzdecke develops over the first month, that efficiency just skyrockets. After about 50 days or so, a mature, ripe biological filter can remove over 99% of those same bacteria. It's a living system, and you have to give it time to grow up.
And hey, this isn't just a theory. A 2008 study from the journal Water Research actually pointed this out. They noted that the filter's purification power just kept getting better and better, even past the 50-day mark. The takeaway is crystal clear. A mature filter is an effective filter. You just can't rush it.
So, what is the big reward for all this patience? Well, let's look at our final section, achieving natural stability. This is the payoff. This is what happens when you decide to work with biology instead of constantly fighting against it. So what does this stability actually look like in scientific terms? Well, in one study, scientists measured how much oxygen a mature filter bed was using. And what they found was that it was consuming up to 6 milligrams per liter of oxygen. Now that number might not sound like much, but it's absolutely crucial. It is hard proof that the biofilm is alive and literally breathing. It's a direct measurement of just how active this microscopic engine really is. You see, that massive oxygen consumption is the definitive sign of a healthy, thriving, microscopic ecosystem. It's the proof that millions upon millions of organisms are hard at work, actively metabolizing waste and transforming it from a toxic problem into the very building blocks of life for the rest of the aquarium. So, let's end with this thought. The whole paradox of the effortless aquarium, it's solved the moment we stop asking, how do I remove waste? And we start asking a much better, much more powerful question, how do I best feed and support the living filter that's going to do all the work for me? That's the secret. You're not a janitor, you're a farmer.